There's a moment, quiet, easily missed, that changes everything. Not the kind of moment people post about on social media. Not the kind with fireworks or dramatic breakdowns. It's quieter than that. Smaller. So subtle that, unless you're attuned to it, you'd never know it happened at all. It might come while brushing your teeth, or while standing in the shower with warm water running down your spine. Maybe it arrives in the middle of a conversation, or as you're staring blankly at the ceiling at 2:47 a.m. That's the moment when the noise inside you drops, even for just a breath, and something else begins to stir. That's the moment the shift begins. But before we go any further, make sure to subscribe to the Siphos Depth channel. Join a growing community of seekers, creatives, deep thinkers, and soul wanderers exploring the mysteries of self, spirit, and reality itself. And while you're here, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. The field is already listening. Now here's the inconvenient truth. Most people never shift, not because they're incapable, not because they lack willpower or vision, but because the shift is too simple. And simplicity? It's terrifying. We've been raised in a world that worships effort, that rewards struggle, that tells us only the worthy, only the ones who suffer long enough, will arrive at truth. We love the hero's journey, especially when the hero crawls through glass to earn enlightenment. And so, when something comes easily, when insight lands softly, when alignment arrives without fanfare, we dismiss it, doubt it, resist it. We think, surely this can't be it. But that's the trap. You see, your ego thrives in complexity. It feeds off problems to solve, identities to maintain, mountains to climb. The ego is a master at distraction, at dressing up the search for peace with just enough chaos to keep itself alive. It says, if you're not trying, you're not growing. And so we keep trying, and trying, and trying. But what if all that trying is exactly what's keeping you stuck? What if the quantum field, the very structure of reality that responds to your inner world, doesn't care how hard you try? What if it doesn't reward suffering or effort or hours spent scripting intentions and crafting vision boards? What if it only responds to your frequency, your pure, undiluted, embodied state? And what if that state becomes clearest when everything else falls away? I want you to imagine something. A radio, old-fashioned, dial-based. You're trying to tune into a specific station. If you're even slightly off, what do you hear? Static. Fragments of sound, half melodies, maybe a voice cutting in and out. That's what your life sounds like when your internal broadcast is filled with contradiction. Saying one thing, feeling another, doubting in silence while affirming out loud. But when the dial locks in, perfectly, you don't need to try to hear the music. It flows. It fills the room. It becomes effortless. That's coherence. That's alignment. That's what the field responds to. And this is the hardest thing for us to accept. That healing, shifting, becoming aren't performances. They're not earned. They're allowed. And allowing requires something far more difficult than effort. It requires stillness. But stillness terrifies the modern mind. Because in stillness, there's nothing to fix, no problem to analyze, no identity to uphold, just presence, just being. And for many of us, that feels like death. Because if it's really that simple, if all the tools, the rituals, the frameworks, the years of spiritual seeking were never the thing, then what does that mean about who we are? What does that mean about everything we've been doing? It means we've been avoiding the one place we were always meant to arrive. Right here. Right now. as we are. There's a phrase I want you to remember: the field mirrors, not measures. That means the universe isn't watching you like a teacher with a clipboard, grading your progress, waiting to give you an A+ in spiritual development. It's mirroring your internal state, every second, every moment, without judgment. And the moment you shift from trying to alignment, the field shifts with you. Now let's go deeper, because this isn't just about a theory or a nice metaphor. This is about how you experience reality itself. Most people think of shifting, quantum leaping, as a kind of magic trick, something big, flashy, supernatural. But that's Hollywood's version. The real shift is often so ordinary you overlook it. It's when you stop chasing, when you stop asking, when will it happen? And instead, you become the person for whom it's already happening. But to do that, you must let go of your addiction to struggle. And yes, it is an addiction. We become chemically and emotionally attached to effort, to chaos, to the identity of the one who's working on it. Because that identity, though painful, feels safe. It's familiar. It gives us something to hold on to, something to talk about, something to post about. But ease, simplicity, that feels like losing control. That's why so many people unconsciously sabotage their own transformation. Not because they're broken, but because they're scared of who they'll be without the struggle, without the mask, without the noise. Let's pause for a moment. Think about the last time something in your life started to flow effortlessly. Maybe it was a project, a relationship, a creative burst, a moment of insight. How long did it take before your mind kicked in and said, "This is too easy. Something's wrong"? How long before you began to doubt, question, shrink back? That resistance to ease, that's the ego. And if you don't learn to recognize it, it will keep dragging you back to the very patterns you're trying to escape. Here's what's true. The quantum shift doesn't happen when you figure it all out. It happens the moment you stop needing to. And the funny thing is, your body already knows this. Your nervous system knows how to rest. Your cells know how to heal. Your consciousness already knows how to attune. But your mind, the noisy, linear, logical part of you, has been trained to distrust that wisdom. And so it fights. It loops. It analyzes. It says, "If I just try a little harder, I'll break through." But you don't break through with effort. You break through with surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the part of you that already holds the frequency of your next timeline. It means letting go of the story that says you have to suffer to be worthy. It means standing still long enough for the new reality to find you. Because you're not creating a new timeline. You're collapsing into the one that already exists. It's already there. Right now. Not months away. Not behind a paywall of suffering, just waiting for you to match it, to meet it, to merge with it. That's the paradox. You don't need to try harder. You need to become quieter. And in that quiet, you'll begin to feel it. The subtle shift in tone. The softening of resistance. The dissolving of effort. The arrival of coherence. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped standing in your own way. And here's the beautiful, wild truth. Once you feel that level of alignment, even once, it changes you. You can't go back. You'll try. You'll doubt. You'll get pulled back into old stories. But somewhere in you, something will always whisper, "You've already shifted." And that whisper? That's your compass now. So don't wait for lightning. Don't wait for signs. Don't wait for the world to confirm that you're ready. You already are. Let's stay right here, right in this stillness. Because the next step isn't about building momentum. It's about surrendering to a new kind of gravity. One that doesn't pull you forward or backward, but inward. Now that you've felt what simplicity actually tastes like, you may begin to notice the tension it creates within you. It's a strange paradox. When life finally begins to flow, when ease starts showing up at your door, that's when the fear gets louder. That's when your mind starts scrambling for problems again. Why? Because you've been conditioned to associate peace with danger. We don't talk about this enough, but many of us have trauma that taught us chaos is normal, that to be safe is to be alert, that to rest is to become vulnerable. So when peace arrives, it feels off, suspicious, unfamiliar. Your body tenses, your thoughts quicken, your inner radar starts searching for the threat, and that's when the loop begins again. So let me ask you something raw. What if the reason your shift hasn't stabilized yet isn't because you're doing it wrong, but because your nervous system doesn't believe it's safe to feel good? This is where the real inner work begins. Not in chasing higher frequencies, not in manifesting harder, but in retraining your body to receive ease without flinching. Because the field, the quantum fabric of reality, isn't some external force waiting to be convinced. It's already responding. Right now. It's reflecting what your nervous system is broadcasting at the most primal level. Not your words, not even your thoughts, but your embodied state. And that state is often a mix of contradictions. You might be visualizing abundance, but your gut is still clenched with scarcity. You might be speaking affirmations, but your breath is shallow and guarded. You might be setting intentions, but underneath, your body is bracing for disappointment. This is why the shift often doesn't stick, not because it didn't work, but because your frequency couldn't hold it. So how do you hold it? Let's start with the first real mastery: self-awareness. I don't mean the kind where you journal about your thoughts at the end of the day, or reflect on past behavior. That has its place. But I'm talking about moment-to-moment, real-time awareness. The kind that watches your thoughts while they're happening, like clouds passing overhead. The kind that notices your triggers but doesn't collapse into them. The kind that witnesses the part of you that wants to panic, but chooses to stay seated in the storm. That kind of awareness rewires your field, because awareness without judgment is the beginning of alignment. It's the moment you stop trying to fix everything and start holding space for it. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unfazed by your emotions, willing to feel them, but no longer ruled by them. That's a shift in power most people never make, and that's why the field keeps responding to their noise, not their truth. But once awareness settles in, another door opens, one that's even harder to walk through. Radical responsibility. This is where most spiritual seekers stop, because up until now, it's been easy to believe that something external will come save them. The right method, the right mentor, the perfect moon phase. But this next level requires you to drop the story that life is happening to you and begin claiming that it's happening through you. Not because you're to blame, but because you are that powerful. And power without responsibility is just chaos. You can't claim your future while outsourcing your frequency. You can't hold your next timeline while blaming this one. You can't call yourself a creator while hiding behind victimhood. The field doesn't respond to intentions. It mirrors ownership. And ownership isn't loud. It doesn't beg the universe for signs or scream at the sky when things go wrong. Ownership is quiet, certain, magnetic. It says, Everything in my field is mine to shift. Not because I caused it all, but because I can choose how I respond to it. That level of agency changes everything. Because now, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is this showing me about my resonance?" That single shift in language will recalibrate your entire reality. It removes the noise. It silences the blame. It clears the static. And then comes the real amplifier. Accountability states. These are the vibrational home bases you return to, no matter what. They're not moods. They're not mantras. They're internal set points that say, "This is who I am, regardless of what life throws at me." You don't wait for life to give you a reason to feel good. You choose it. You don't beg for alignment. You embody it. You don't dip in and out of coherence based on circumstances. You become coherence. And the field, which has been listening this whole time, shifts with you. But let's be honest. This part, it's brutal. Because it asks you to show up even when it's inconvenient. Even when the evidence says you're crazy. Even when nothing is moving and your logical mind is screaming that it's all falling apart. That's where 99% of people quit. Not because the shift isn't real, but because they don't yet trust themselves to hold the signal long enough for the shift to materialize. And this is where we reach the most paradoxical teaching of all. Detachment from perception. We are taught to judge everything. This is good. That's bad. This means I'm aligned. That means I'm blocked. We live in a culture of constant evaluation. But what if your darkest moment, the breakdown, the failure, the heartbreak, what if that's not a sign of misalignment at all? What if it's the final exhale of your old frequency before it dies? Because here's the truth. The field is not linear. The timeline doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in spirals, in collapse and convergence. So what looks like failure may be the exact calibration required for your next leap. Detachment doesn't mean you become numb. It doesn't mean you bypass or spiritually gaslight yourself. It means you stop assigning labels to your experiences. You feel everything fully. But you don't cling to it. You don't define yourself by it. You don't tell a story around it. You allow it to move through you. That's how the shift lands. Because now, you're no longer fighting your way into a new timeline. You're no longer trying to earn your upgrade. You're simply becoming the version of you that no longer needs to fight. And the moment you do, the entire field reorganizes. Why? Because your identity changed. And the field doesn't respond to thought. It responds to embodiment. Most people try to fake coherence. They say the right things. They smile through the fear. They curate a perfect image of being high vibe. But the field doesn't buy it. It mirrors the frequency underneath the words. And when that frequency is fractured, when the internal isn't matching the external, the field delays, deflects, distorts. That's not punishment. It's feedback. So the question isn't, what am I thinking? It's, what am I being consistently, quietly, unconsciously? That's the true signal. And when your signal stabilizes, reality bends. Not instantly, not like magic, but with a kind of elegance that feels like inevitability. Opportunities start to find you. People begin to mirror back your growth. Ideas arrive effortlessly. Life softens. And not because you forced it, but because you finally became available for it. You stopped pushing. You started receiving. You stopped chasing. You started holding. And the shift? It became you. You felt it before, haven't you? That strange, almost sacred pause between what was and what's not yet real. The hallway between timelines. It doesn't feel like a beginning. It doesn't feel like an ending either. It feels like floating, like limbo, like nothing you do is working, yet something deeper is undeniably moving. This is where most people lose faith, and understandably so. You've been told that clarity feels like confidence, that breakthrough feels like power, that alignment should come with joy and expansion and signs from the universe clapping for you in the form of synchronicities. But that's not how the shift feels at first. It feels disorienting, because before a quantum leap, the old identity must collapse. The frequency that kept your previous reality in place, your beliefs, your habits, your emotional reactions, begins to dissolve. And you, the version of you that held it all together, begins to disintegrate with it. It's not failure. It's not regression. It's not punishment. It's calibration. When a radio moves from one station to another, it doesn't do so cleanly. There's a moment of static, a fuzzy, uncomfortable in-between. And that's where you are when the shift is real and close. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're just tuning. The energy that once held your life together is being rewritten. The walls of your old identity are falling down. Not because something is wrong, but because something truer is trying to take its place. And the only thing standing in the way is your resistance to letting go. We fight the disintegration. We panic in the static. We look at the falling apart and assume something must be wrong. But what if that unraveling is your proof? You've been asking for a new timeline. Well, here it is. But it can't arrive on top of the old one. It has to replace it. And that replacement is not always peaceful. It often feels like confusion, like nothing makes sense, like your desires are receding instead of approaching. But what if the truth is this? The new reality is already forming. It just hasn't locked into visibility yet. The quantum field doesn't respond to surface thoughts. It responds to your capacity to hold energy, to remain centered not when everything is perfect, but especially when it's not. So if you're in the space between, if you feel suspended, disconnected, restless, or numb, that's not a warning sign. That's the edge of your transformation. It's not about what you do next. It's about what you don't do. Don't chase. Don't fix. Don't rush to interpret. Just hold, breathe, listen, stay, and most importantly, feel. Because feeling, not thinking, is how you shift frequencies. Thinking is linear. Feeling is energetic. Thought needs logic to make sense of things. Feeling knows before it understands. It reaches into timelines the mind hasn't caught up to yet. So let yourself feel, without a story. Let yourself be in the hallway, without needing the next door to swing open yet. And while you're there, you'll notice something subtle happening inside you. Your nervous system begins to adjust. You become less reactive, less desperate for confirmation, more willing to sit in the void without panicking. And when that happens, when you stop leaking energy through fear and resistance, your field strengthens. That's when you become magnetic. Not because you tried, but because you stopped interfering. The new timeline doesn't come through when you push harder. It comes through when your energy stabilizes, when your internal state becomes a match for the life that's already waiting for you. So ask yourself right now, can I hold this vibration even when nothing around me seems to be changing? Can you trust what you feel even when you don't yet see results? That is emotional strength. That is energetic maturity. That is quantum alignment. You're not just learning how to manifest things. You're learning how to become someone who no longer needs to manifest, because they're already living in the resonance of what they desire. And when you live in that resonance, the external doesn't dictate your frequency anymore. You're not negotiating your state with your circumstances. You're not calibrating yourself based on what shows up. You're holding consistently, calmly, without conditions. That's when the field listens. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about signal distortion. Because here's the part that most people misunderstand about quantum shifting. You don't just send out energy when you want something. You're sending it out all the time. Every breath, every moment. Even when you're not conscious of it. You don't activate the field with intention. You're already active, right now. The question is, what are you broadcasting? And more importantly, what contradictions are hiding in your signal? You say, I'm ready for abundance, but do you feel safe with it? Do you trust it? Do you believe you're worthy of it when no one's watching? Because the quantum doesn't care what you say. It cares what you are. If your vibration is coded in doubt, urgency, control, or unworthiness, that's what the field mirrors. Not because it's cruel, but because it's coherent, because it's honest. Your signal is your truth, not your performance. And when there's a mismatch, when what you say doesn't align with what you feel, the field doesn't get confused. It simply chooses the dominant vibration. Always. That's why incoherence leads to delay, to distortion, to mixed results. You manifest half a breakthrough and then sabotage it. You get close and then loop. You feel clarity one moment and chaos the next. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because your signal is fragmented. And so your reality is too. But when your signal stabilizes, when what you feel, think, believe, and embody begin to harmonize, then something extraordinary happens. The field doesn't just listen, it rearranges. It begins to reflect you not inconsistently, but predictably. You stop riding the emotional roller coaster. You stop craving external proof. You stop asking, is it working? Because you know. You've felt the lock-in, the coherence, the clean hum of internal alignment. And from there, everything moves faster. You're not trying to manifest anymore. You're not begging the universe. You're not collecting signs. You're living from the frequency that already holds the life you desire. And that's when the game changes. Because the quantum shift doesn't begin with getting. It begins with being. Being the version of you who no longer chases. Being the version who wakes up already in resonance. Being the version who stops asking for the shift and starts embodying it. This is not a fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is physics. You are a tuning fork. And the moment you vibrate in harmony with the new frequency, everything else follows. You don't drag it into your life. You collapse into it. You don't need more proof. You need more presence. Because presence is the bridge. Stillness is the portal. Simplicity is the code, and you already hold the key. What happens when you finally stop chasing? When the seeking ends, when the rituals are quiet, and all you're left with is you. Most people think this is the moment the universe finally rushes in, that everything aligns instantly. Money, love, clarity, purpose, all landing at your feet like a perfectly timed miracle. But often, that's not what happens. Instead, it gets quiet, still, almost too still. The noise of wanting disappears, and in its place, there's space. And if you're not used to that kind of spaciousness, it can feel like loneliness, or worse, like failure. You might think, nothing's happening. I must be doing something wrong. But don't rush to fill that space. Because what you're feeling isn't absence, it's alignment. It's the space where your nervous system finally stops running. The space where the old stories aren't driving you anymore. The space where you're no longer reacting, adjusting, proving, performing. You're just here. And here is where the quantum field begins to reorganize around you. But you won't see the change immediately. Not because it isn't happening, but because your eyes are still adjusting to the new light. The new timeline doesn't arrive with a parade. It arrives with coherence. And coherence is subtle. So subtle that if you're addicted to drama, you'll miss it entirely. You'll look around and think, where's the proof? But proof is the language of the old paradigm. The new one speaks in resonance. You don't wait for life to tell you who you are. You decide, you embody, you broadcast, and reality bends to match. That's the shift. Now let's get real about what makes your signal clean and what makes it noisy. Most people confuse spiritual tools with frequency work. They think repeating affirmations, meditating for hours, journaling about gratitude, that's the shift. But that's just tuning. It's not the broadcast. The broadcast is your embodied state when no one's looking. It's how you feel in the pause between doing. And here's what people don't want to hear. Your signal doesn't care how many vision boards you've made. It doesn't care how many podcasts you listen to. It doesn't even care how badly you want it. It only cares how aligned you are when you're doing absolutely nothing. Because that's when your dominant vibration speaks the loudest. That's why the most powerful thing you can do isn't to try harder. It's to clean your signal. So what does cleaning your signal actually mean? It means you stop trying to fake coherence and start embodying it. It means you stop performing high vibration and start becoming someone whose nervous system naturally rests there. It means you stop collapsing your identity every time life gets hard and start holding steady. Not because you're pretending everything is fine, but because you know who you are even when it's not. That's energetic maturity. And the field responds to maturity. Because maturity means consistency, and consistency is coherence. Let's talk about this in practical terms. Say you want to shift into a reality where you're thriving, financially, emotionally, spiritually. You set the intention. You get excited. You visualize. You say all the right things. But deep down, your body is still in survival mode. You're tense. You're afraid. You don't actually trust that things will work out. That's your real broadcast. Not the vision, not the excitement, not the declarations, the fear. And the field mirrors that. Not to punish you, but because it always tells the truth. This is why the shift isn't about what you focus on. It's about how. You can focus on wealth all day, but if you do it from desperation, from a place of needing to escape your current life, the signal is distorted. The message becomes, I don't have enough, and that's the frequency the field hears. But if you focus on wealth from calm, from certainty, from embodiment, then the message becomes, I already am. And that's when things move. Because the quantum doesn't need you to beg. It needs you to match. Match the energy of the version of you who already lives that life. Match the breath, the posture, the thoughts, the emotional tone of that future self. And then, here's the part that takes courage. Stay there. Not for a day, not for an hour, but until it becomes who you are. Because the only thing separating you from that timeline is consistency. You don't need more knowledge. You need more frequency integrity. And that means you stop abandoning your state just because the world hasn't caught up yet. It means you stop needing reassurance before you hold your tone. It means you stop leaking energy through doubt, comparison, and control. and start becoming a clear, grounded, resonant signal. That's how timelines lock in. But let me say this clearly. This doesn't mean you ignore your human moments. You will still feel fear. You will still get triggered. You will still have off days. But the difference is, you won't lose your identity in them anymore. You won't make them mean anything about your worth. You won't spiral into chaos and call it truth. You'll feel it, honor it, move through it, and return, again and again, back to the signal, back to coherence, back to your center. And every time you do, the field calibrates tighter, cleaner, faster, until the shift doesn't feel like something you're creating anymore. It feels like something you're remembering. Because that version of you, the one who already has it, already lives it, already breathes it, has always been there. You're not inventing her, you're accessing her. And access comes not from control, but from availability. So be available for the simplicity, be available for the silence, be available for the new timeline to arrive gently, not with force, but with grace. This isn't magic, it's precision. It's not manifestation, it's embodiment. And it's not about proving anything to the universe. It's about proving to yourself that you're finally ready to stop outsourcing your power. You are the shift. And once you know that, once you feel that, nothing outside you can ever take it away. If you've stayed with me this far, something in you already knows. Not just intellectually, not just as a concept, but deep in your body, in your bones, that whisper of truth. I've always been the shift. I've just been waiting to remember. You might still feel like you're figuring it out. You might still wrestle with doubt, with fear, with the urge to fix. That's okay. Growth isn't linear, and neither is awareness. But let's be crystal clear. Your nervous system doesn't need perfect thoughts. It needs a stable signal. A felt sense of coherence so rooted, so embodied, that it no longer scans for external validation. And coherence isn't achieved through effort. It's revealed through stillness. Let's unpack this further. Coherence in the quantum context is not just alignment between thoughts, emotions, and actions. It's an energetic harmonic. A frequency signature so resonant, the field cannot help but organize reality around it. And the secret is, you're not working to create this coherence. You're stripping away everything that disrupts it. You already know what it feels like. Think about those moments when you're so in tune with life that it feels like you're not pushing, just riding the wave. Conversations flow, ideas spark. People respond to your presence without you trying to be anything other than what you are. That's coherence. It's the state where your frequency speaks louder than your words. So now the real question becomes, can you stay there, even when your environment doesn't affirm it yet? Because here's the catch. The field listens, but it listens to dominance, not occasional bursts of clarity. You can't hold a powerful vision for 5 minutes in the morning and then spend the rest of your day doubting it, reacting to the news, worrying about bills, scrolling through social media in fear of missing out, and expect your reality to rearrange itself around the 5-minute window. The field doesn't measure your strongest moment. It mirrors your most frequent one. So, let's say it plainly. Your signal is not what you intend. It's what you embody consistently. And if you're broadcasting fragmentation, believing one thing, feeling another, acting from a third, then the field receives static. Not because it's rejecting you, but because it literally can't lock on. It's like trying to tune into a station that keeps flickering on and off. You don't hear the music. You hear noise, and you change the dial. The quantum works the same way. When your signal stabilizes, your timeline stabilizes. So how do you do that? How do you stop shifting back and forth between trust and fear, vision and doubt, surrender and control? The answer isn't willpower, it's emotional attunement. You have to learn how to regulate your frequency, not suppress your emotion. This isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about creating a nervous system that can hold contrast without collapsing. Because real power isn't about controlling what you feel. It's about choosing who you are inside what you feel. So when you hit a low point, when the fear comes in, when things seem to fall apart, you don't abandon your center. You stay. You breathe. You observe. You witness the breakdown without assigning it meaning. And here's the irony. The moment you stop needing the breakdown to go away, it does. Why? Because you've removed resistance. And resistance is what keeps the old pattern alive. You're no longer feeding it with fear, reacting to it like a problem to solve. You're just letting it be what it is, a passing signal, not a permanent state. And the moment that happens, your frequency clears, and the field receives a new instruction. This is the new signal. Lock in. Let's take it one layer deeper. Your identity is not what you say you are. It's the emotional tone you rest in most often. If you say, "I'm abundant," but you live in a state of scarcity, that scarcity is your identity. If you say, "I trust the universe," but constantly try to micromanage your outcomes, that control is your identity. If you say, "I'm enough," but still need the world to validate you, then that need is louder than your affirmation. And that's the version of you the field reflects. But this is not a judgment. This is a gift. Because once you understand this, you stop chasing and start refining. You stop doing more and start holding better. You become an energetic editor, trimming away every thought, reaction, and behavior that doesn't align with your desired state. And what remains? Stillness. Clean, honest stillness. Not the kind where nothing happens, the kind where everything finally can. You'll begin to notice the shift not in big, dramatic ways, but in subtleties. The right words will find you. The right people will appear, not because you chased them, but because you stopped repelling them with inconsistency. Your body will feel different, calmer, lighter, like it's no longer fighting itself. And maybe most surprisingly, you'll stop wanting as much. Not because you don't desire, but because you're no longer trying to fill a hole inside you. The hunger will fade, not because you gave up, but because you remembered you already are. This is the true shift. When desire transforms into embodiment, when you stop seeking the life and start living as if it's already here, not pretending, not faking it, but owning the version of you who no longer waits to be chosen. Because the field doesn't give you what you want, it mirrors what you are. And the moment your wanting dissolves into being, the whole system aligns. So now we arrive at the most radical idea yet. What if the shift is not ahead of you? What if it's not even something to achieve? What if it's already happening right now, and your only job is to stop interrupting it? That means stop doubting the calm. Stop distrusting the ease. Stop assuming something is missing just because the path is quiet. That's not the absence of growth. That's the maturity of it. Because the deepest transformations are often the most invisible, like tectonic plates shifting beneath the earth. No fanfare, no announcement, just power, steady, massive, inevitable. And that's who you are when you stop fragmenting, a stable signal, a quiet storm, a field of coherence the universe cannot help but respond to. So let this be the moment you stop waiting. Let this be the moment you stop reaching. Let this be the moment you remember. You are already it. Not becoming. Not getting close. Already. If you've made it this far, you've already begun the shift. Maybe you haven't noticed a dramatic change in your outer world yet, but something inside of you has moved. A layer has cracked. A frequency has softened. A thread of resistance has unraveled. That's how it always begins, quietly. Not with an explosion, but with a realignment, a remembering. And now, you're not just listening anymore. You're tuning. Tuning to a new way of being that doesn't ask for permission, that doesn't depend on external signs, that doesn't require you to convince anyone, not even yourself. You're not trying to become aligned anymore. You're starting to realize you already are, and always have been. The quantum shift isn't a technique, it's a return. Return to stillness. Return to presence. Return to coherence. And the final secret, the one that so few talk about, is that the shift doesn't stay unless you stabilize it. Most people have experienced glimpses of their future self, that version of you that shows up in meditations, in dreams, in those rare moments where your energy feels clean, strong, magnetic. But then something happens. A trigger, a bill, a text, a spiral, and poof, it's gone. Or at least, it seems that way. But the shift didn't disappear. You just dropped your signal. And this is where we turn a moment of change into a new baseline. So how do you do that? How do you make the shift permanent? You integrate. Integration isn't as glamorous as the quantum leap. It's not as thrilling as the spiritual high. It's quieter, more grounded. It's in the decision to live the shift not as an event, but as a lifestyle. It means showing up to your daily reality as if the new timeline is already here. Even when your bank account hasn't caught up. Even when your relationships haven't reflected it yet. Even when no one else sees what you see. Because this is what it really means to live in a quantum reality. You stop outsourcing your vibration to circumstances. You stop needing the mirror to show you who you are. You become the signal so fully that the mirror has no choice but to reflect it back. That's when your life stops being a reaction and starts being a projection, a broadcast, an expression of your inner coherence, and the world around you organizes itself accordingly. You're not forcing it. You're entraining it. Entrainment is a principle of physics. It's when two frequencies naturally align, with the weaker one adjusting to match the stronger. And in the field of reality, your energy is the stronger one. When it's stable, when it's clean, when it's consistent, the external will shift to meet you, not instantly, but inevitably. This is why effort often backfires, because effort assumes the power is outside you. But alignment reminds the field where to gather, where to flow, where to bloom. So let this be your new practice, not chasing, not fixing, not proving, but holding. Holding the version of you who already exists. Holding the energy that already matches the life you desire. Holding the tone so clearly, so calmly, so unshakably, that the old patterns can no longer survive in your field. And when the old patterns try to come back, and they will, don't panic. They're not proof that you've failed. They're proof that you're evolving. You're noticing things you used to normalize. You're choosing differently in moments you used to collapse. You're recognizing that the discomfort isn't a problem. It's a sign your nervous system is expanding. Because here's the final integration key. You don't shift reality. You shift your identity, and then reality follows. Not because you micromanaged every detail, but because you became someone who no longer needs to. You stopped outsourcing power. You stopped waiting for confirmation. You stopped being loyal to the version of you that survives and started honoring the version that creates. This is your new baseline now. Not high vibration as a trend or a performance, but as a regulated truth. A home frequency that feels like peace, not intensity. Like clarity, not adrenaline. And from here, you'll notice something extraordinary. You begin to need less, but receive more. You begin to speak less, but are heard more. You begin to try less, but move faster, because you finally left the matrix of effort and entered the flow of resonance. And now, life doesn't feel like a pursuit. It feels like a conversation, a dance, a mutual recognition between who you are and what's available. So say it with me, not as a hope, not as a wish, but as a confirmation. I am the shift. Let those words be more than an affirmation. Let them be a contract, a signal to the field that you remember who you are. Not the seeker, not the struggler, not the one who needs to prove anything, but the one who knows. And from this knowing, everything changes. You're not chasing the life. You're living the frequency. You're not managing your future. You're inhabiting your present. You're not waiting for signs. You are the sign. This is your new identity. Not because you finally earned it, but because you finally allowed it. You are not becoming. You are being. You are not manifesting. You are mirroring. You are not shifting. You are the shift. Let this be the moment you stop searching for the path and start walking as if there is no other path but this one. This presence, this breath. Because now you understand. The field doesn't respond to force. It responds to truth. And your truth is already enough. So welcome home. Not to a new reality, but to the version of you who's always been waiting. The shift isn't ahead of you. It's within you. And now that you've embodied it, the field will never forget.